Your day starts bright and early, 4 a.m. You're off to practice and then weight training. Have just enough time to grab a shower and get you something to eat for breakfast, and then you're off to class, 7:30 to 4. Finish up your day with 2 more hours of practice, and it's all for what? Not a dime of spending money in your pocket. Hi, my name's Charles Smith, and today I'm going to tell you why I believe college athletes should be paid. I'm going to talk to you about some of the enormous profit that are made off of these athletes. And then I'm going to tell you about some of the hard work and time that these kids have to put in, not only for their sport, but also for their classes as well. And then I'm going to wrap up by telling you about some of the great health risks that these kids have to take. First off, I'd like to start by talking with you about some of the enormous profit that are made off of these kids. And they really do help make an insane amount of money for a lot of different people. According to the article College Football's $1.1 billion profit, it's found on CNNMoney.com. In 2010, college football profited more than $1 billion. That's more than $1 million per game that these kids are helping to make. And it's not just the colleges that they're helping make money. The NCAA gets their share as well. According to CollegeSport.info's article, 2011 NCAA television revenues by conference, the NCAA made over $1 billion on the BCS's conference TV revenue alone. So that's $2 billion right there these kids have helped make in a year for both the NCAA and their respective colleges. So now that I've discussed with you some of the great profits that are made off of these athletes, let me talk to you for a minute about the hard work and time that they have to put in, not only for their sport, but their classes as well. Because let's face it, these kids are full-time students first before anything. They have to spend countless hours studying to try to keep the scholarships that they have. And not only that, they're full-time workers too with their sport. Practicing, training, off-season camps, games during the season, whatever it is. According to a USA Today article called Study, College Athletes Are Full-Time Students, the average college athlete spends over 40 hours a week during their respective seasons, either practicing, playing games, or training. And with this busy schedule, it leaves little or no time for these kids to get a part-time job that they can use to cover the uncovered expenses of these quote-unquote full scholarships that they receive. And this amount of money could vary, but according to the article, new study finds that NCAA full-time scholarships leave student athletes running on empty. That's found on the Ithaca.edu website. It's an average of about $3,000 a year that these kids have to come up with that are not covered under their scholarship. So $3,000 may not sound like a lot to some people, but when you're a full-time student as well as a full-time worker with your sport, and you can't get a part-time job, where are you going to come up with this money? So now that I've talked to you about the hard work and time that these kids put into their sport, let me talk to you for a minute about the health risks that these kids have to take. These kids take a really high health risk, and many of them without any monetary reward whatsoever. The Journal of Athletic Training stated in an article called Catastrophic Head Injuries in High School and College Sports, that's found on the National Center for Biotechnology information website, that from 1982 until 1999 there were 20 deaths and 19 permanent disability injuries in the United States, and that's in a variety of different sports. So some of these injuries could be very costly because the NCAA does require that every student athlete is insured before they can play the sport. They don't, however, regulate how much insurance each athlete has to have. So depending on the severity of the injury and the amount of coverage they have, these students could be left with a pretty hefty bill to foot. And with fewer than 3% of all college athletes ever making the pros, a lot of these kids are taking a really high risk and never receiving any monetary reward whatsoever. So now that I've talked to you about health risks, let's take a look back at all the things I've discussed. Today I've talked to you about some of the enormous profits that are made off these student athletes. And I've also talked to you about some of the hard work and the time that they have to put in, both to keep their grades up for class and for their sport. And finally, we discussed some of the great health risks that these kids take. Let me wrap up by saying that it is my opinion that college athletes get paid to play their sports. And it's something that I hope that I've helped persuade you to as well.